Welcome to the COSB 360 Conversations videocast, the platform for county influencers. This is an organizational and talent development initiative to engage with all leaders and keep our workforce informed. This is also one way to share the efforts of departmental staff in what it takes from a leadership perspective to keep the wheels turning in our organization. This videocast is being hosted by June Mighty, OTD Division Chief.
Welcome to the COSB 360 Conversation Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. It's a platform for county influencers. And so we're going to be focusing on innovation, and what's taking place in the county. So today I have Jeff Rapwell, who's one of our assistant CEOs here at the County of Santa Barbara, and whose primarily responsibilities oversee. When you think about Jeff, you think about the budget. That's the primary thing. That's not all he does, but that's kind of what comes to my mind when I think of Jeff Rapwell. Then we also have Brian Elms, who actually started the Peak Innovation at the City and County of Denver, and has a book out which we've used in terms of what we're going to tell you a little bit more about in terms of our Black Belt and Green Belt training session. And of course, we have Heather Bowling, who's with General Services, and Rachel Littman, who's also with Budget, works in Jeff's group, and they are helping to spearhead and bring online the InnovateSBC Academy here at the County of Santa Barbara. So welcome to all of you, and I have questions for all of you. We're going to have just a really great time and hopefully some laughter along the way, all right? But what I want to do first, I want to start out with Jeff Rapwell. And so Jeff, one of the things I want to do, and because I know that in previous sessions, when you do the Green Belt training, and we will be explaining what the Green Belt is, Brian will do that a little later, and so Heather and Rachel can jump in as necessary. You typically talk about when you were introduced to this type of innovation, and from what I recall, your experience started at Kern County. Isn't that correct?
That's right, June. I mean, I had the opportunity to first learn about Peak Academy, and as you mentioned, that was the initiative that Brian was so instrumental in putting online for the City and County of Denver. But I became aware of that when I was still the assistant CAO for Kern County. And when I first heard about it, I was a little skeptical, and it's like, oh, what is this? And oh, just another rehash of doing more with less. And what I learned in putting that in place and learning about that program, it wasn't that at all. And so, InnovateSBC, as we've morphed that and made that centric to our county, is really about providing a set of tools to all of us, everyone in the organization, a set of tools to look at how we can do things differently, how we can be open to and understand and look for in a not just a passive way, but in a deliberate way of how we can do government better. Where is the bureaucracy? Where government is often criticized for being very bureaucratic. And to some extent, we have to own that. And we also have to own that maybe we should do something about it. To the extent that we can, we have to look for ways to do things better, to be more responsive. So really InnovateSBC, as we have launched that here in the county, is really about providing a set of tools to look at things, evaluate, and how we can do things differently. But it also, more importantly perhaps, is a way of challenging us, both individually as county employees, but also organizationally culture, to want to innovate, to want to look to do things differently. And I've never been a fan of change for the sake of change, right? To me, that's just a waste of energy. But to the extent that you're looking for change, in order to be more relevant, in order to be more effective, in order to make the workplace that we all live in and function in more effective and more fun, frankly, and to remove those barriers, that bureaucracy that we all kind of sledge through some days, to remove that where we can, I think frees us and energizes us as employees and as an organization to continue making changes, continue to constant improvement. So InnovateSBC, to my knowledge, and I had the opportunity, as you mentioned, June, to really put these same tools in place when I was with Kern County. And what I saw in that experience is just, and I did it just at a kind of large department basis, not a county-wide. But what I saw within my department was just this energy just fed upon each other about looking for ways. It was very freeing. It made people enjoy their job more because they took more control of the things that they can control. So that's really, in a nutshell, what I see InnovateSBC is doing is really giving a set of tools, challenge us individually and culturally, and freeing us and energizing us to do great stuff.
So let me interject there. Jeff, thank you so much for that. You talk about energy, you talk about freedom. This also fits in really well with our multi-year transformation effort, here at the county. And this is, correct me, is part of the component of the redesign aspect of Renew 22 for the county. So where you talk about culture, so we're really looking at changing the way that we do things, as you said, as part of our culture. Is that aptly put?
Yeah, that's right, June. This did come, kind of falls under the umbrella of the larger Renew 22 initiative that we put in place a number of years ago. And the impetus for one of the parts about Renew 22 that kind of drove us to formalize that was really our aspiration as a county to be a model of how California county governments should operate. And so it sounds a little, that's pretty aspirational, but I think it is a motivator for us. How do we make yeah, I agree. How can Santa Barbara drive the way and be an example for other California counties of how to do government right, local government right? And what do I mean by that? How do I define what right is? I think right, in my way of thinking, is really about this whole notion of relevance. This notion of relevance, which recognizes that the communities that we serve, that those needs within those communities continue to evolve, continue to change. I think that is part of the kind of thinking behind. Then we need to change too. We need to be responsive. We need to reflect what's going on in the community and the services we provide and the methods of how we provide them. So yes, it fits under the whole Renew. Us wanting to be aspirational as far as being a model county. It's really about us creating a culture that is nimble and resilient to changes that come upon us. And our resilience has never been more tested than right now during this pandemic.
So true.
And so it's really about resilience. It's really about responsiveness. And it really, I think, Renew is really, excuse me, looking at changing our organizational culture.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jeff. And this is really a great segue going, to Brian when you talk about change. So one of the things, like I like to tell people, right, we're always changing. And when we use the word change, Brian, people sometimes think about, well, I don't like change. But I always like to say that, if I go back and look at my pictures, I don't look the same way today than I looked 10 years ago. There's been some changes, right? So yeah, we're changing even when we don't know it. So with that being said, Jeff, thank you so much for setting us up and what we envision and being that example and that model as a county. So Brian, let me come to you because you were really the sort of the innovator for this program at another county, and now you're with the Change and Innovation Agency and working with us to help to model that behavior here in the county of Santa Barbara, and providing us the tools necessary to do so. So one of the things I want to start out with you, Brian, because you're doing this for several other organizations, you're doing this across the public sector, and in talking to you, you have a passion for public sector and for public service and for providing awesome service to our communities. So with that being said, what is innovation and what does it look like in the public sector? Tell me a little bit about that.
June, I think innovation lands in sort of three areas. One, we all think of the big breakthrough innovation, right? The Googles of the world, the Microsofts of the world. And we think that they're the ones who make transformation possible. And then we have a secondary piece, which is known as adjacent innovation, where someone comes up with an idea in one sector and it finds itself into another sector. And then we have the idea of incremental innovation. Incremental innovation is when you sort of improve upon the service that you're providing by doing like version 2.0, version 3.0, your iPhone 12. That's what incremental innovation looks like. In government, trying to do a breakthrough innovation is nearly impossible without doing the incremental innovations first and the adjacent innovations second. The incremental innovations have a tendency to not be as sexy. They're not as fun. It might not be the thing that hits the front page of the paper. And so people are a little reluctant to do it. But when they do it, they actually start to add up. So you create this large sense of change from small, simple, practical improvements. And the more small, simple, practical improvements in the public sector, the more people we serve, the more potholes we fill, the faster we fill those potholes, the better we fill those potholes. That's the type of thing that we're looking at doing. I work in a world of delivering service through value, and we want to get that service and that value directly to the resident who's requesting it.
Now, talk to me about that. Hold on. You said a couple of things that I want to add or explore. Delivering service through value. Help me to understand that a little bit more, the word, because of the way you use that word.
Yeah, every citizen, when they're requesting something, or a resident who's requesting something, needs something of value from us.
Okay.
And that could be a business license, that could be a permit, that could be filling a pothole. They need something, so they're requesting it. When we provide it, it has value.
Gotcha.
When we withhold it, it doesn't. Or when we delay it, it diminishes value. So what we try to do is figure out how to get that value on demand and provide that value with quality.
Thank you so much for that. Now, the next question I have for you, Brian, is about explaining the difference between what we have in terms of what's the green belt and black belt training. So let me set this up. In December 2019, which seems like eons ago because of COVID, we went through the peak performance training that all three of us and everyone who went through just thoroughly enjoyed. We thoroughly enjoyed it. And so that made us want to become advocates for that process. It was a 1-week training. And one of the things that we heard, we all thought 1 week, but at the end of the 1 week, we saw the value in that, right? And then you also have the Greenbelt training, which is not as prolonged, but also provides some significant value. So from your perspective as sort of the creator of this, help our county audience to understand the distinction between the two and the value of each.
First, I'd love to tell you that I created this.
Okay.
This is a creation of a life, right? This is like 5, 6, 10 people helped build this program in the city and county of Denver. I just happened to be one of them.
Okay.
I was the director of the program in the city and county of Denver for almost 6 years, and I helped start it. For me to take credit for it would be like a complete and total fabrication. There are tons of people who worked on it. So that's one.
Gotcha.
Number two, no one does anything by themselves. So
that's a fact.
If someone ever says like, oh, I built this program. No, a bunch of people built it with you. Be honest about those other people. Quit short stopping this story. It's a better story when you say Heather, June, Rachel, and Jeff built this program. That's a better story, right? So I want to say that's number one. Number two, green belt and black belt are designed in a similar sort of lean practitioner fashion. A green belt is a introductory level to process improvement and innovation, and a black belt is a more advanced level. And it's
hold on there. I got to stop you now. I want to stop you because we're going off script. Now, did you say lean as it relates to public sector? That works, really? I've
Well,
heard that it doesn't.
I love where your head's at. So parts of lean really work in the public sector.
Okay.
Parts of Six Sigma really work in the public sector. Parts of behavioral insights really work in the public sector. Parts of nudging, project improvement, process improvement, continuous improvement, all of those things, parts of them work in the public sector. So we should use them and use the parts that work. And what my team did in Denver was create a curriculum that uses those specific techniques that we know work in the public sector. And we know they work, we know they work in the public sector because we did every technique and we only kept the techniques that still work. So what you're getting is the sort of output of all of my failures and all of our team's failures where we attempted to do something and it didn't work. So that's what you're getting. So
we appreciate that. Thank you for fleshing that out for us. We appreciate that.
So the Greenbelt really is an introduction to how process improvement and structured problem solving works. It leaves you with 2 tools to ID a problem or see a problem, and 2 tools to solve a problem. And then it also teaches you a technique to say a problem, meaning how do you talk about a problem? We call it the see it, say it, solve it technique. And those tools sort of help you look at your day-to-day activity to try to find something to make it a little bit better than it was yesterday.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me add that same technique that you just mentioned would also be very helpful in putting together a business case to get some funds from Jeff. What'd you say?
I mean, if that's where you're going, I mean, most of the program teaches people how to do things without additional money, without additional technology, and without additional people. But if that's where you're headed, that's fine. But the black belt is slightly different. And I say it's advanced, it's not expert, and you don't have to have a high degree to do this. What we did is designed a program that anyone at any level can get value out of the technique. So there are techniques for solving problems. It's one thing to use your intuition, but it's another thing to use a technique. When you start to use techniques, you go from being an intuitive and experienced professional to being an expert professional. And what we tried to do is provide you structured techniques so you can become an expert in your field. And we want you to be an expert in your field. When you use these techniques, so in Black Belt, you get 7 techniques of seeing and 7 techniques of solving. And additional, you still get your structured problem solving technique of saying the problem. But we do not say like, oh, you have to have this type of education in order to get into this class. That's not the case. The program is designed for anyone, meaning if you mow parks for a living, you can get value out of this course. If you are the head of HR, you can get value out of this course. And it teaches you how to look in wherever you're at, how to solve those problems.
And let me add some things because I think Heather and Rachel could even chime in on this. It gives you a sense of control over the things that you have control over. Isn't that right, Brian? Because a lot of times people will think they can't make change or they can't do anything because I'm not responsible, I don't have control. And one of the things that this teaches you is that there is a segment of the world that you have influence over, and you can apply these tools and techniques to that space. Right?
Yeah, I think there isn't a class that we had that someone says, oh, I'm not in control of anything. And then at the end, they're like, oh my gosh, I have so much power and control. I had no idea that I could do this, this, and this. And the real sort of aha moment is recognizing that all of those things you have power and control over can be changed.
And the beauty of that as well, the way that you just said it fits in with what Jeff mentions in terms of freedom. When you realize that you have that influence, you really are freed up to operate at a higher level and become your best self, in terms of, I think Mona talks about, the county, we becoming our best self so the county can be the best version of itself. So it allows us to do that. Brian,
and June, just so you know, we've already trained over 100 people.
Yes, we have.
Over 100 people have already been through the training. Over 78% of those people have provided us with an innovation and documentation that they have done something. That's
Awesome.
insane. 96% approval rating in our black belt course. So please come take the training. It'll be the best training that you've ever taken. Was that a good sales pitch?
No, that's actually, it's good, but it's not a sales pitch. It's actually real. Isn't that correct, Heather and Rachel? That's a real deal. So yeah, I love it. Rachel, what were you going to say about that before?
Well, I just wanted to say that's true. One of the things that we've heard from people who come into the classes is, I've known that there was this process that was frustrating me and I knew I wanted to fix it, but I just never had the time to do that. And this class gave me the time to just look at it, focus, and fix it. And so it might even be that somebody already knows what they want to do. This just gives you some tools and the time and a support group,
Yeah.
You have your whole cohort with you. And so you get to kind of do it together and share it. And so that's been great feedback.
Awesome. Heather, what about you? Anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I agree. One of the things I was thinking about for my own personal journey is I'm new to, when I came to the county 5 years ago, this is my first office job. And so I didn't have a lot of experience in paperwork. I was a waitress. And so I came in and once I learned the structure and the way things worked, I realized I started noticing things that seemed out of place or like, oh my gosh, this seems so frustrating. Why are we doing this way? And I would try to implement things. And I had ideas that, oh, maybe if we do this, this will make it better. But I didn't have any experience or any professional experience on how to implement those ideas and how to communicate those ideas to other audiences. And so taking the training has given me a really great basis and tools to be able to share ideas without making people feel like their work is not good, so those are some really great benefits. And being in a staff position, I understand the challenges of understanding what do we really have control over. That's one of the challenges I think a lot of people face in an administrative role, like a office professional type role. They think they don't have control over a lot of work, but when you really look at small things, you understand you do have control. So I have really benefited from that and with the InnovateSBC and taking the peak training.
And so what I want to just sort of summarize some of the things that you just said was, one, we have better tools for communicating. You understand what you have control over. It provides you analysis tools for identifying problems, tools for communicating. And it also helps us. One of the things that our CEO, Monami Sato, mentions is in terms of having staff and employees who exercise sound judgment. So that even helps us in those skills as well, because I see it all fitting together. Even when we think about Brian, you said something and I wanted to make sure I connect the dots. Jeff mentioned in terms of, we're not talking about doing more with less. You also mentioned the aspect of, we're not looking at, trying to secure more funding, but it is that awesome balance at times. Like, no, I'm not trying to tell you to get water from a stone, but I am saying that there are creative and alternative ways of looking at the situation that can solve a situation without having to looking for money. Isn't that correct?
Innovation is really easy when you have the funding to do it. Mm-hmm. Innovation is more creative and more exciting when you don't. When you have to MacGyver something, that's a better innovation. If you're like, oh, we need this new app, and you have a $500,000 and you dump it into an app, you just wasted $500,000 on an app that's probably not going to work. So I would rather see someone build an Excel spreadsheet with some type of Visual Basic behind it for $4 than to build an app for $250,000 that doesn't help anyone. And we have a tendency to jump our solutions based on a new technology, jump our solution on, I need more people to be able to do this, jump our solution on, I need more money, and then I can serve more people. That's not true. There are dozens of ways that we've served more people without additional money. In fact, we served 17,000 more people in the city and county of Denver, business licenses, with 4 less staff, because we had to do, we didn't have to do anything. They retired. So we had 4 less staff, and we served 17,000 more people. We didn't increase their budget at all. In fact, they had a budget cut. So this team was able to do more, innovate in that space, and actually provide better quality services. They went from a 40-minute wait time to a 12-minute wait time.
Wow.
They went from a 50% failure rate, meaning 50% of the time the customer did not get a business license, to a 10% failure rate. That means 90% of the time someone walks through the door is getting what they came for and they're leaving. And we were doing that in 12 minutes. We didn't build an app. We did that through ingenuity, through curiosity, and grit.
I love the way that you ended that, and grit. I love that, because it does take grit in the public sector to get this stuff done. It takes a lot of grit. And with that, Brian, talk to me about how to create that culture of innovation, because it takes grit to change culture. Changing culture is not for wimps. So how do we get there?
Well, we used to say culture will eat any good idea for lunch. Well, in government, we eat it for breakfast. So if you have an innovative idea, we'll eat that for breakfast. If your culture is a fearful culture, if your culture is not a expanding culture, if you don't have a lifelong learning culture, you'll eat it for breakfast. And so in order to create change in culture, you have to create a deliberate practice of impact, which means you can't talk about changing culture. You actually have to change culture. And you change culture by demonstrating that Heather took this course. She then implemented 2 innovations. And because of those innovations, she's able to reduce the time it takes to pay her invoices. She helped another team member figure it out too. And now they're doing twice as many invoices in the same amount of time without any additional support or resource. That's what you do. And you celebrate what she did, and then you challenge Rachel to do the same. All culture is a combination of action and words. You can't do one without the other. You have to demonstrate what you want to see changed.
And I like that, because Brian, with the examples you were given, you've already stated that we've had over 100 people already going through the training. And so I want to say this, right? So we started, we had a discussion. Of course, we were planning this since 2019, and this is something that Jeff is spearheading. But as a result of COVID and everything that was going on, I think, I don't know if you remember, we met back in July. We had a meeting, and we talked about trying to get something off the ground. And I think Jeff mentioned at the time, is like, do we have enough time? And I said, Brian was talking something crazy. I can't remember what he was saying, but I said we do, because I had already begun to share with participants in another program that we were doing about InnovateSBC, about Peak. And we had one participant who went from Be Well. I think it was Michelle. Michelle heard about it. She went back to her supervisor. And as a result of that, because there were some changes that she wanted to make, and their whole team came out and actually participating in that program. And from what we started, Jeff and Heather and Rachel, we all got together and we got this thing rolling. And now we also have over 100 people who are registered for the course. I think out through March or April. Don't quote me with the exact date, but the bottom line is we have over 100 people who are interested in participating. So Jeff, we are on the roll there, aren't we?
We are. So Joel, June, let me tell you this. So, when we first set this goal within the larger Renew 22 umbrella, we said we'd like to put some coursework and some training in place that demonstrates the return on investment. In other words, the value that we can point to, demonstrate, quantify directly as a result of this training. We want to make sure that return on investment is at least double, right?
Right.
We also said by the end of 2022, we want to have trained 225 people. I think it was the number that I remember.
Correct.
So, I am blowing those two goals up.
Oh, so glad we could help you.
I mentioned to the Board of Supervisors in December of this past year, I upped our goal. It's ambitious, but I want to have, sorry, Brian, you can have work cut out for you. I want to get to 10% of our county workforce. I want 450 people to make it through this training by the end of 2022.
All right.
We're on our way.
We're on our way.
We can do this. We can do this by being intentional. We can do this by keeping our passion. We can do this by making this available. I am convinced we can do that. And I don't think 2-time return on investment is high enough. We should be able to get at least four times.
Wow.
So I am throwing the gauntlet down today.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
I want to see 450 county employees make it through green belt and black belt by the end of 2022. And I want to demonstrate, and I think Brian's going to talk about it in a minute. I want to demonstrate that a return on investment, that the value of doing this training is quantifiable. And the value is at least 4 times the cost of the training. And I don't set that out just because I think this is a return on investment proposition. I really do think that the true value, beyond budgetary value, the true value is creating a culture that embraces, looks for, and change. And again, not change for the sake of change so that we can be relevant, change so that we can be effective, change so that we can demonstrate the value that we provide as public servants. That to me is my ultimate goal of this.
I love that. You said that's
coming from the budget, not want to just equate everything to dollars, but the truth is, organizationally, and I've been in public service for over 40 years. This gray hair is not premature. For a long time, and it's been my passion through my entire career. Is how are we wise stewards of public resources? How are we most effective, and how can we best serve?
And Jeff, you landed that. Man, he dropped the mic on that one. I like that. You did. He did.
You know what? No, I'm totally jumping in. Rachel, did you just hear what we have to do? And Heather, I just want to make sure that you're clear. So I actually want to say we're going to get to 500, Jeff.
Okay. All right.
And this is like an auction. Do I hear 500?
Do I hear 600?
We're gonna save over 400,000 hours of work time. We're gonna save over $2 to $3 million of substantial dollars for this county of Santa Barbara. Count it right now. I'm saying this right now. We will train over 500 people. So
all right.
You'll destroy that goal, and we will demonstrate that the team has saved hundreds of hours of service time, opening up hundreds of hours of their own capacity. And then we'll demonstrate actual physical budgetary dollar savings that go back to your budget. And I'm going to guarantee this. If I don't
guarantee,
do this, I'm never working again.
What
do you think, Rachel?
This is gonna happen. So not only that, okay, so one, I love the way, because Jeff, your comments were very inspirational there. Brian is putting down the gauntlet and saying this is going to happen, and we're going to exceed what you have set out here to do. So Brian, before I shift to Heather and Rachel, as we're getting ready to wrap up talking and get some examples from them, I want to know from you, how do we keep the synergy and momentum moving forward to accomplish what you just stated?
The hardest part is the perseverance side.
Okay.
It's the not giving up. Every single innovation comes up with a wall hit. Every single idea comes up with a wall hit. And that means like, oh, that was a good idea, Jeff, but we tried that last year and it didn't work. That's the wall hit. So every single time that you hit the wall, instead of just stopping, you have to say, oh, cool, it didn't work last year. What would make it work this year? And you have to constantly look for, can we make this a little bit better today? And the whole goal isn't to make these huge breakthrough changes like I talked about at the very beginning. The goal is to find, can I do one more thing today? Meaning, can I help one more person? Can we fill one more pothole? Can we get one more child some food assistance? Can we do one more child support enrollment in a day? Those are the types of things that we're looking at. We're not looking at transforming that service. We're looking at, can we do another one? And if we can, everyone on our team does another one. That's that capacity that we find. Those are those hours of services that we find where we can demonstrate the impact to the organization. And then
Awesome.
saving that money is another portion as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I appreciated that information. So let me do two things. One, I want to wrap up with two things. Let's talk about the database and tracking. And then let's mention, Rachel's going to talk about a success story before we conclude this. So who wants to talk about the database and tracking process here that we're going to be incorporating in all of this?
I'm sure that's me.
All right, then go for it.
Yeah. So we are tracking every single individual who goes through the course, and then we're tracking what they demonstrate to us back. So we have a mechanism to make sure that we're talking to them, make sure that we're calculating it, make sure that we're capturing it. And as we build that out for the county, it'll be cooler and cooler for some of our coaches to be able to use it. We have about 100 of those innovations already in your database, which is really awesome. And we're just getting ready to start to aggregate the information and aggregate the data and the data.
The data. Yeah, the data. I like that. The data.
We're going to aggregate the data and make it look something that you can actually present to your team members. Look,
awesome.
Talking about innovation is one thing. Being innovative is another. And creating a culture or an understanding in a group that all we're trying to do is demonstrate our action and have that sort of deference to action. Everything is about action. And the more that we demonstrate that, the better off your innovation program is.
Love it. Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate the fact that you were able to join us today, and all the support that you've been giving us has just been really phenomenal, and we learned so much. So Rachel and Heather, who wants to give us, as we're wrapping this up, what's important is about the success stories and the things that are happening across our county. So talk to me. Can you give me the county audience some examples of what's taking place?
Yeah, so I wanted to share, I have a few examples. It's really hard to pick, actually, because there are so many already. But I think here's sort of the one that really stands out that I'll share, which
Hold on,
is,
let me see if I should have given you should have privileges. Go ahead if you wanted to share something.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm not going to.
Okay, good.
I'm going to show you through my words, June.
All right, go. Excellent.
Okay. Monica and Marisol work in the records division of the sheriff's office, and they work together on an innovation that actually improves public safety. So up until they took the Greenbelt training, restraining orders were kept in binders in various substations. So when a sheriff's deputy would get called out on a domestic dispute, they would call into a substation to ask if there was an active restraining order between the involved parties. And sometimes they might have to wait 15 minutes while someone looks through the binders. Let me find that out for you. Okay. So Monica and Marisol moved this entire process from physical binders to electronic records.
Awesome.
So now the deputies can access the information from their patrol cars immediately.
Oh, wow. That is awesome.
It gives me goosebumps to think of that one, right? And that happened during our green belt. So they were one of the earliest groups. So that was really exciting. There are a couple others, but I think
but let's really reinforce this, because based on the relationships that I have with those who are in law enforcement, domestic violence calls are some of the most dangerous and unpredictable environments for a deputy or a police officer to encounter, right? So having that information is really very, very important and critical as it relates to public safety. So I don't want to underestimate that, but that is actually phenomenal. That is phenomenal. Yeah,
it really
something
is.
to celebrate.
And imagine if someone misfiled a restraining order in the binder, right? Well, now, they set up a whole electronic file system by letter. It's very organized. They have a memo that went out to everybody, in the department to learn how to use the new system. So I think they've probably prevented, some oversight that could have happened.
Definitely.
Because of the nature of the physical records.
Definitely.
And June, this is a software they already had. So they didn't buy this software. They already had this software. They just haven't used it in an optimal way. And this training helped them figure out, how do we implement this software that we've had, just haven't used. And literally over the course of the class, and then a month later, had it completed. Absolutely.
Wow. That's awesome. Blown away by that.
Yeah,
Heather,
you're talking 5 to 10 minutes per sheriff per call.
I know that does make a difference. And just think about the mental distraction, sometimes that occurs when you're looking for something. And I just see that's a big win. That's a big win. So Rachel, talk to us.
Yes.
Not Rachel, Heather. Sorry, Heather. Give us an example before we head out.
What?
Heather.
Okay, so I also, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the role of a coach and the way that we've been able to transform the in-person trainings into a COVID environment. Real quick, we have coaches, and they are participants who have been through the black belt training and are on track to earn their black belts. They serve they help lead the session. So they go through the Zoom training. And then the coach also supports participants in a mentor type role.
Right.
And they're there available by phone, by virtual meeting, in any capacity to help provide support for the participants so they don't feel so alone, because now we're not all in the same room and we're not in this together, so to say. So we have to really provide support in a way that they will feel less alone, so that they can, because process improvement is hard, and it's hard to make change and to create innovation. So we're there to support them as the coach, and that's our role. And so that's one of the things we're really doing to try to create a connected environment virtually. And so thank you.
So wait, Heather, I think there was something about, let's see, how we've adapted the trainings to the COVID environment. How did we do that? You want to talk a little bit about that before I wrap up?
Sure. So when Rachel and you and I all took the training, we were in the employee university room
face
together
to face.
40 hours. And so when COVID hit and we had to create the program here, we didn't want to just not do it and just wait. So we decided, we did a workaround, and we worked with Brian, and he helped us to create this online database with all of the tools and interactive videos and different things. And we created Zoom calls to where we could all virtually meet and be together like we are today. And that's why also we have the coach to help with that environment, as I was speaking of before. So this training didn't exist virtually before COVID. And as a result of COVID, it was a great innovation on all of our parts to be able to bring this to the county still and not stop, you know, and not wait, because who wants to wait for innovation? This is something we have now.
You know what, Heather, thank you so much for that, because what I want to sort of wrap this up with is this. It's for us, we wanted this, right? And then we have COVID. And because we reside along the coast, because we are prone to a variety of natural disasters, it's important that we're able to respond to our community effectively, correct? So we have fires, we have mudslides, we have COVID. And so I think what is phenomenal about what Jeff has led and us as a team, along with Brian, what we've accomplished is that in the midst of crisis, we've been able to sort of keep our heads and innovate, you know, so that we can maintain that sense of resiliency, so that we can build that sustainability into the organization and into the organizational culture, so that we can have that sense of relevance, making sure that we're providing that value to our community, regardless of the circumstances that are transpiring around us. We have equipped ourselves, and we are equipping ourselves as a county to meet the needs of our community in a relevant and timely, value-added way. And so I want to thank all of you for joining us today and sharing with the county community all that we are actually doing. I hope that I'll have the opportunity sometime in the future to have you back as we continue to progress on this endeavor. Jeff, thank you so much for taking time out, you know, joining us and spearheading this charge. And Rachel and Heather, you guys don't know all that they've done, but they have done, these two ladies have done some phenomenal stuff in terms of really helping to get this up and running. And I'm so glad I had the opportunity to work with you and support you with that. Deanna was not able to join us, but I want to give a shout out to Deanna as well. And then Brian, of course, your support, your insight, your wisdom, the training, and all that you do. Thank you so much for joining us. So you guys have an absolutely awesome day, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we will just take a look at different and upcoming sessions, training sessions, and different things that we are doing around the county relating to our leadership training. And even as we've mentioned, we have over 100 people who have signed on for our InnovateSBC training sessions virtually. And so you also go to our catalog, which is online, and you can take a look at the courses that are available. Also, if you want, you can request that we come to your team, and we'll be more than happy to provide something specifically for your team within a specific department. So you can reach out to us for that as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Looking forward to talking to you again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.